Chairman and Senator Boozman. SNAP has historically reflected the health of the economy. When employment rates decrease, SNAP participation rates decrease. In his State of the Union message, Biden's rightfully touted 3.4% unemployment, a 50-year low. Now, SNAP participation is at more than 41 million people, 12% higher than it was in February 2020. The cost of federal nutrition assistance has increased 300% from $63 billion 19 to $149 billion 22. As the current ranking member of the Budget Committee, I intend to stress the importance of budget and spending decisions being made so we can work towards putting in place a budget process that works. Yesterday, CBO released their latest report on the federal budget outlook. They project that growing federal spending and borrowing leave us with an annual budget deficit of $2.9 trillion by 2033. And we have to start tackling that issue right now. Now, most relevant to today's hearing, CBO says that total spending on SNAP will exceed $1.2 trillion over the next decade. That is a staggering statistic, especially considering that when we were developing the last Farm Bill, the applicable number was 664. Our people's confidence in SNAP is undermined when this administration usurps Congress's power of the purse and very unilaterally increases the program's cost by hundreds of billions of dollars without any concern to the fiscal impact and the impact on inflation. So before I ask questions, I'm going to kind of sum up a philosophy I have. I don't know how it's shared by other people. But February 2020, we had X number of money and people on food stamps. And then we had to intervene and spend a heck of a lot of money before the pandemic. So I assume if you do something because you have a pandemic, you have an emergency, that when that emergency's over, you go back to what's normal. And normal would be February 2020 plus inflation, plus the number of people that have increased in population. And that figure that came out of the Budget Committee is nothing similar to that today, or with what they were projecting, with the reality of if you didn't have the pandemic. So the pandemic cannot be used as an excuse to ramp up federal spending. So my question to you, Undersecretary, what role do you think the increase in food and nutrition spending has contributed to food inflation for middle-class families that do not qualify for SNAP?
Let's see. Well, let me just first remark, if I can offer a friendly amendment on your principle, I would argue a program's share of GDP, its share of the economy. You were talking about actual real spending, which I appreciate. I think its share of the GDP is probably a better marker, and I do expect that SNAP will return back as we see participation fall in response to a stronger economy. That does take longer amongst low-income households. We saw that after the Great Recession too, right? They are often first fired, last hired, and their ability, when the economy recovers, it doesn't always include everyone equally. And so it will just take a little longer, I would imagine, for participation to abate, but we expect to see that. In terms of the broader question you asked, that might be a better question for our Office of Chief Economist, and I will check in with them, but it's important to remember that while SNAP spending is extraordinarily important to the households who receive it, benefits modest though they are, it is actually a relatively small share of the overall ag economy and food economy, and we can get that to you, sir.
I'm glad to hear your rebuttal to what I said, but did I interpret you right that you do expect the food stamp spending to get back to a level of February 2020 plus inflation plus increase in population?
Yes, although probably not as quick. I would say I think they will take a while to tail because not all households are equally sharing in the economic recovery.
Okay.
And that'll be the issue.
Do I have time for one more question?
We're happy to have you ask a question and have a short answer, so thank you.
Okay. I've got a long introduction to my next question, but I got to go immediately to my question. But it deals with the air rate. Mm-hmm. In your time as undersecretary, what have you done to lower the air rate, and why do we not have an air rate update since 2019?
Briefly, Congress suspended the QC system in a way that resulted in us not being able to publish error rates for 20 or 21. We will for FY22, and I will tell you in candor, I expect that it will be higher than it was the last time we had an error rate, partly because of how much change that has been going on during the pandemic with respect to operations. And we have been aggressively addressing this issue with states and happy to follow up with your office.
Thank you, Undersecretary.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.